More Canadians than ever are realizing they need a second citizenship to protect their wealth, to protect their freedom, and today I'm going to talk to you about the strategy that Canadians should be considering for finding the best second passport. Hi, I'm Andrew Henderson. This is Nomad Capitalist, where we've helped everyone from multiple billionaires to celebrities to everyday 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs and investors who want to legally go where you're treated best. You can learn more at nomadcapitalist.com. And we've been hearing from a lot of people at nomadcapitalist.com who are from Canada and who have seen in the last couple years, in the last couple months, hey, this place may not be as good as we thought. It's what I call a legacy brand country. Hey, Canada was a great country. It was a bastion of freedom. They had so many things going, but they've been making a lot of wrong decisions in recent years. And now people are starting to wake up to the fact that, hey, only being Canadian may be a disadvantage if I want to keep more of my own money, if I want to keep my freedom, and if I want to give my kids the best opportunities going forward. When I was in my early teens, 12 or 13 years old, my father said, go where you're treated best, and that may not be the United States. It turns out he was right. The United States, and with it, a number of other Western countries have decreased in terms of economic freedom, decreased in terms of personal freedom, and all the other indexes like it. They are not keeping up against other countries which are on the upswing. And so your citizenship certainly connects you to a country. Now, you can be a Canadian and you can go and live in another country. You can reduce your taxes by doing so. But I believe that with some of the tax changes being proposed, some of the chatter from politicians, some of the assaults on your freedom that you've seen, being at least a dual citizen and possibly even building a portfolio of passports is a good idea. Now, when someone comes to me and says, what's the best second citizenship for me? The answer is, I need to know your circumstances. When you come in as a client, we're going to ask you 200 to 300 different questions to get into what I call every nook and cranny to figure it out. And so I'm going to try and walk you through some of the basics today. I think the same approach could apply to someone who's not American but is Western, so Canadian, Australian, New Zealand, you fill in the blank, okay? The first thing is you want to consider fast, easy, cheap. Pick two. Okay, we'd all like everything to be fast, easy, and cheap, but the rare time you see that in the citizenship market, the bureaucracy of the world corrects that pretty quickly. So, what do you want? The first thing you can consider doing is look at your family tree. Now, this is going to be pretty cheap. It may or may not be fast, but it's not going to take you 10 years generally. But check your family tree. Do I have a parent? Do I have a grandparent? Do I have a great-grandparent who came from somewhere else? And can I qualify for citizenship through them? I had a guy about a year ago. His mother was born in Mexico. She's Canadian, but she was born in Mexico. I said, wait a second. So she was born in Mexico. She's a Mexican citizen. That's how it works in most countries in the Americas. Birth on the soil confers citizenship. She's a Mexican, and therefore you can probably be Mexican. Great. There's a second passport. If you have an Irish grandparent, if you have an Italian grandparent, more countries in Europe are opening up. We've helped Canadians who have ancestors from Guyana, from Trinidad. I've seen people who have ancestry from Africa, particularly West Africa, get citizenship. We've seen people with connections to, let's say, Taiwan, for example. Eastern Europe even allows this, and the Balkans, for example. And so there's lots of different opportunities to check your family tree and see what citizenship you can get. Is that particularly easy? Not necessarily. I spent close to a decade pushing for a citizenship by descent that I would love to have, but that either comes with too many restrictions or just flat out isn't possible because I've spent so much time tracking down records. In most cases, we can help someone do that in a year or two. Some of the waits for, let's say, Italian might be 3 years. A couple of countries, due to the pandemic, aren't processing those right now. But you can probably get a passport in your hand in a couple of years if you qualify through your family tree. For a few people out there, you may be able to qualify through marriage or at least get started on the pathway through marriage. Most marriage countries you need to live there, but there are a few, for example, like France, where you don't need to necessarily live there. But check your family tree, check your family, and see what passports you may qualify for there. That's a good place to start. No matter how much money you have, you can do that. Now, let's talk about the opposite end of the spectrum. If you're worried about your wealth and you're worried about your freedom, one of the things that I keep hearing from the left wing in Canada is let's impose a citizenship-based tax, which means if you're Canadian and you say, hey, I don't want to live here anymore for whatever reason, hey, I have the big Bitcoin investment that's going up. My business is growing. I have capital gains and I don't want to pay tax. I'm going to move to Dubai. I'm going to move to the Caymans. I'm going to move to Singapore. If you have a citizenship-based tax, you will not be able to escape that. The Canadian government will follow you. There could be some carve-outs, there could be some exemptions, but they're going to follow you and make sure that you pay no matter where you go. You see the left wing in Canada pushing for that. Obviously, you also see bank accounts being frozen. You've been threatened to have your passport yanked if you protest. You've had a lot of different restrictions that have been threatened. So you've got the wealth side and you've got the freedom side. If I am the 7 or 8 figure entrepreneur or investor that we work with here at Nomad Capitalist, the other thing you can look at is citizenship by investment. This could be in the Caribbean, it could be in Turkey, it could be in a handful of non-EU or one EU and a couple of non-EU European countries. You've got about a dozen countries, probably 6 or 7 of which are worth considering for most folks, where you can go and make some kind of either donation or investment in the country, and within a matter of 6 months all the way up to 18 months, get a second citizenship without the need to live there, or in many cases even set foot in the country. You can do it all through a due diligence process remotely. That's something that's worth considering. Now, that's going to be fast, as little as 6 months gathering documents to having passport in hand. It's going to be, is it easy? I mean, you don't have to change your life. I mean, the document collection will be this big, and so we help people do that. Is it cheap? Hey, for some people, $100,000, $130,000, $150,000. Hey, for some people that is cheap. It's a great insurance policy, especially if you're going to use that to facilitate an offshore tax plan that will save you a lot more than that, especially if you believe that at some point Canada might tax your worldwide income, even if you don't live there, in which case, hey, you'll be happy you got this because then you'll have options. But most people wouldn't consider $100,000 plus cheap, so it's fast, it's easy, quote unquote. At least it's straightforward. You know what to do. There's a set forth process that you can follow. That's something that works for Canadians. And what I've seen a lot of successful people who are looking for a backup plan in the last 2 years, they've said, I don't want to mess around with other options like paper residence. This is where you go and establish residence in a country and you wait 3 years, 5 years, whatever, you come back, you collect your citizenship. You don't really need to live in the country, at least very much, okay? Portugal's Golden Visa program, maybe being the one exception where it's 7 days a year. You need to learn some Portuguese. Some folks like that because it's in the EU, but by and large, I've seen successful people say, I don't want to wait. 3 years is too long. And so in that case, I would encourage you to look at the citizenship by descent, maybe as a secondary second passport. What I've had is people come in who they say, I want to protect myself from tax increases now. I want to make sure I can get out of Dodge. I want to make sure that I can take my freedom somewhere else. Let me get a Caribbean citizenship, or in some cases, let me get Turkish citizenship. And then if I qualify for citizenship by descent, that might take 2 or 3 years. Let's get that one as the second one, but I want to be protected now. I think a lot of Canadians and a lot of Westerners, this is new to you, right? You've always thought, hey, we have the best passport. Hey, we have total freedom. Yeah, we pay some taxes, but it's worth it. You've seen what your tax dollars buy you the last couple of years. You've been on your own by and large, right? And especially if you are living somewhere else overseas, forget it. You are on your own. And now they're saying it's not enough. Now they want a wealth tax. Now they want an unrealized capital gains tax in some countries. Now, if you don't live there and you don't use the services, they want to tax you. Go talk to Jagmeet Singh and see what he has to say about that. And so if you are used to having this great environment, I think a lot of Canadians are like, is this important? You know, they complain about Justin Trudeau. They complain about everything that's happening, but there's a part of them that thinks this isn't real. My suggestion for those folks is you want to move quickly, right? Because if you're not used to doing business, living, spending time in up-and-coming countries around the world, if I say, hey, here's a residence permit, visit 1 day a year for the next 5 years with your whole family, and after 5 years you get citizenship, you may not keep that, okay? Now, if I went to a guy from Pakistan, for example, and said, hey, do this, go to this country for 1 day a year, I can tell you, and I'm not making this up, this is actual, I've seen this, you're more likely to do that. When I have a Canadian, an American, a Westerner, I say, hey, go to some country that you never thought had a great passport and do your 1 day per year. It's like, and so for that reason, I think keeping friction to a minimum, if you can afford it, is important. That's why I like citizenship by investment. The Caribbean probably gives you the highest quality passport for your dollar, but you're going to make a donation. And so you've got to consider, hey, if taxes go up and I want to get out, how much can I save by having a second passport? What are my freedoms worth? What is it worth to have a plan to make sure my assets aren't confiscated? Now, just a passport alone is not going to solve all these problems. You need to have it as part of a holistic tax plan, asset protection plan, etc. But I believe Canada will move more closer to saying, hey, your citizenship dictates your tax rate. Your citizenship dictates what you can or can't do. Look in the US. If you have a tax bill, and I'm all for paying your taxes, I'm all for doing things legally, but if you've got a tax bill in the US, they can cancel your passport the same way Justin Trudeau threatened to cancel your passport if you went to a protest or donated to a protest. He said, hey, you never know, we might cancel your passport, you won't be able to travel even to the US. So when that kind of discussion is being bandied about, I want a solution faster, especially knowing that I may not want to leave my country right now. I don't want the hassle of going somewhere else, either 1 day a year, 7 days a year, 6 months a year. I just want to stay at home and have this passport protecting me for when I feel it's necessary. That's why I think Caribbean citizenship makes a lot of sense if you could afford that cost. If you can get citizenship by descent, that's going to be pretty affordable, but it's going to take more time digging up different records. We work with numerous lawyers on the ground who can even go and find records in some random village. We've done that in the past. Sometimes we need to do that, sometimes we don't. So you've got kind of two different paths. You've got the faster and more certain route, which is citizenship by investment, and then you've got the citizenship by descent route. And again, if you happen to be married to someone who's a French citizen, an Armenian citizen, something like that, you can potentially get those citizenships or get on the track to getting those citizenships without having to live there. Those are the approaches that I think most Canadians are going to take. Now, if you want to actually move overseas, that's going to open up your options. But I think you want to be clear. Is this my plan A? Am I actively packing up my stuff and moving to another country, reducing my taxes, changing my lifestyle, or is it a plan B? If it's a plan B, those are the two approaches that I would take. We help people do both here at Nomad Capitalist, and you can learn more at nomadcapitalist.com. Don't stop now. We've got well over 1,000 more videos here on YouTube for you to watch and learn how to go where you're treated best. And if you want to work with Nomad Capitalist personally, go to nomadcapitalist.com/apply, learn about our unique, tried and true process, garnered over years of experience, and learn how you can become our client.